The Badgers need a quarterback this offseason. I'm going to give you 5 names that make a ton of sense. Locked on Badgers, let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Harings. Thank you for making this the #1 sports podcast network. We really do appreciate it. Today's episode brought to you FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long over at FanDuel.com. Question and answer show today. We got a bunch of great questions from Twitter, from Discord. We are going to talk about hoops, maybe some potential staff changes if it should happen, what we might think could go on there, plus quarterback thoughts in the portal. Let's start here. Several really good questions, like I said, and a lot of them revolved around the biggest spot on the team, quarterback. This is from Dante Hadler. Aside from Colton Joseph, who do you have another quarterback in the portal that you like? We're going to talk about 5 of them right here because we also got a question from Hooger. What do you think about Dylan Lonergan? Should he be the top portal quarterback? That's the kid that decommitted from Boston College, formerly was at Alabama, played really well last year, has 2 years of eligibility left. Adam asks about Kenny Minchi, who just decommitted from Notre Dame, or didn't decommit, but entered the portal from Notre Dame. He's a kid with 2 years left. Let's talk about these 5 guys. So I have 5 guys that I want to hit on that I think make a ton of sense for the Badgers, that could be had, that I think could be realistic, that I think could be fits. And this is outside of Colton Joseph, who, to me, Colton Joseph, the Old Dominion quarterback, is my #1 guy. That's who I want the Badgers to go all in on. I love the skill set. I think Colton Joseph is a perfect fit for the Jeff Grimes offense. I don't think Jeff Grimes is going anywhere. And if he's not, you find the right fit for his offense at quarterback. I do think that's Colton Joseph, but a lot of other guys here. Let's start with Kenny Minchi. Again, this is somebody Adam asks about, just decommitted from Notre Dame or entered the portal from Notre Dame. Minchi to me is kind of like Tanner Mordecai. Think of a mobile quarterback that has pocket mobility, a good arm, 2 years left of eligibility. He's a really solid thrower. You're betting on some of the traits there. He hasn't played a ton at Notre Dame, but he can move around in the pocket. He can make off-platform throws. Minchi would be a really good get for Wisconsin. I would put him below Colton Joseph, in my opinion. I don't think he's quite the athlete that Joseph is, but Minchi would be a type of guy that I think would keep the offense running. I would keep it moving. I think he's a relatively safe quarterback for a guy who hasn't played a ton. He has been at Notre Dame. He's been in a winning system, a winning culture. He's not a statue. I don't think he's a true dual threat guy, but he's not a statue. So that's Kenny Minchi to me. I would be totally good with that. Not higher on my board than Colton Joseph, but Minchi's definitely a guy that's interesting. Hooger, good friend of the show, asked about Dylan Lonergan. Lonergan is interesting too. Lonergan, I think, surprised a lot of people. He entered the portal from Boston College, played there last year, was originally at Alabama. So this is a high pedigree recruit in Lonergan. He's a guy who's 2 years left of eligibility, 6'2". So he's big enough to take some contact in the Big Ten. Not a great athlete, good enough, plenty good enough, but he's not the dual threat guy that a guy like Colton Joseph or some of the other players on my list are, but he can move well enough to run RPO. He can move well enough to get out of the pocket. He has escapability in the pocket, like he can make people miss, but I really like the throwing. It's a clean, simple release. He layers it across zone coverage. He can fit it into spots. He throws with anticipation. This is one of the best throwers, in my opinion, on this list. Threw for 2,000 yards last year. 66% completion percentage, 12 touchdowns, 5 picks. And almost most importantly, he did it at Boston College. A lot of the other quarterbacks we're looking at either maybe a backup at Notre Dame who hasn't played much, Old Dominion quarterback. There's a USF quarterback I'm going to talk about. A lot of guys that we talk about. There's a Harvard one we're going to talk about. Lonergan did it at BC. He played Clemson, played ranked Georgia Tech. He played Notre Dame this year, played Pitt and Michigan State. This is a guy who's done it at the higher levels of college football, which makes him really intriguing. He did struggle against Notre Dame a little bit, but against Georgia Tech, he had a really good game. Threw for 360 yards. Talking about Lonergan, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He's interesting. Again, I would be totally, if you walked out of this offseason with Kenny Minchi, I'm fine with that. If you walk out of it with Lonergan, I'm really good with that one. Lonergan might be my #2 behind Colton Joseph, if I'm being completely honest, because of his experience, because he has 2 years left. I think that's a big deal. Colton Joseph as well, 2 years left of eligibility. If you can get a guy and get him for 2 years, lock him into a 2-year deal, and then really focus on developing younger guys behind them. And then in 2 years, you kind of turn it over internally. I think that's ideal. I think that's best case for the Badgers. That's a spot where Lonergan gives you 2 years. Minchey would give you 2 years. Colton Joseph would give you 2 years. Let's talk about a couple other guys that I think are interesting. So again, this is going back to Dante's question. Who are some other portal quarterbacks that are interesting to you? I think Lincoln Kienholz, who I don't think is officially in the portal yet, but he's really intriguing to me. That's Ohio State's backup. Julian Sain's not going anywhere. Most people anticipate Lincoln Kienholz going into the portal. Kienholz is an Ohio State guy. He pushed Julian Sayin all the way up until a week or two before the season. That was a real battle, and you saw how good Julian Sayin was this year. Kienholz, another guy, kind of like Minchey, a good athlete, not a great one, but gets out of the pocket, high level thrower for his age and inexperience. People are really high on the arm and his ability to throw the ball. Kienholz would be really interesting to me. Another one here, Byron Brown, coming from USF. I think most people think Brown is going to go probably follow his coach to Auburn. But this is a player that is explosive, dual threat type guy, can throw the ball, has a twitchy arm. Byron Brown would be somebody, again, in this offense, I think would make a ton of sense. I just don't think he's probably very likely. And then let's talk about the Harvard quarterback who just entered the portal. Family Man Ty asked about Jaden Craig. Jaden Craig is probably at the bottom on my list here. But again, you could do way worse. This is a player that threw for, I want to say 3,000 yards, 2,800 yards last year, 25 touchdowns, 7 picks at Harvard. He is a senior, so he's a guy, you're going to have him for 1 year. Jaden Craig from Harvard. You would like a guy with 2 years of eligibility, but this is another player who is mobile enough to run this offense. He has been productive, 2,800 yards, doesn't turn the ball over much. He's 6'3". So all these players, if you were to rank them for me, it's Colton Joseph, number one. I'm just in love with the skill set. I think he's a 4'6" guy. He's 200 plus pounds. He's big. I like the arm strength, and I think he's a perfect fit for Grimes. Number two, I'm probably Dylan Lonergan, just because of the high level experience at BC. He's probably the best thrower out of this entire group. So if that's really what you want, I think you go for Lonergan. He just has great touch. He throws with timing, anticipation. He's done it at a higher level. I would totally be fine if they walked away with him. Number three, it's probably Lincoln Kienholz to me. Then it's probably Kenny Minchi, Byron Brown, and then I think you get down to like the Harvard quarterback, Jaden Craig. There are a couple other guys like Sam Levitt's in the portal. I don't think Wisconsin will get him. I've heard LSU kind of linked there. I think there's going to be some bigger. I think the Sam Levitt sweepstakes are going to get out of Wisconsin's hands a little bit. There's a couple other guys as well, but that's a group of quarterbacks. Keep your eye on those guys. Again, Colton Joseph, who I know the Badgers are interested in. That's a player that I would love to get into Madison. Really good questions on the quarterbacks, guys. Hooger asks, with how many 5-7 teams continue to decline bowl games? If Wisconsin's name were to come up, just in a hypothetical world, if a bowl came and said, hey, 4-8 Wisconsin, would you be willing to step into this job or willing to step into this bowl game? Should they take it? That's the question from Hooger. Yes. Yes, they should take it. And I would be now, the only caveat to this is it gets harder and harder to take a bowl appearance the longer you don't know, because your players are leaving. You can't just a week before a game say, hey, we're going to go to this bowl game and like phone tree everybody back in. Hey, get back over here. We have a football game. This isn't like backyard football. You can't just a week away make those type of decisions, which makes the timing of it incredibly hard. And I just don't think there's any realistic path for this to happen. However, if you could ever get into a bowl game, you absolutely take it, because you need the practices. You need the practices more than anything else. Think back to the last 2 years. With bowls, you get 15 practices. Think about this for a second. Let's game this out. The last 2 years, Minnesota has made a bowl game. That means their young players have gotten 30 more practices over the last 2 years with this bowl game and last bowl game than the Badgers. It's a big deal, guys. The 30 practices is a huge deal for your young players, for development, for putting in schemes, for learning how to read defenses, for doing all those things, for offensive line combinations, for rushing the passer. 30 practices is massive. So if you can take a bowl game, you always take a bowl game, in my opinion, unless again, maybe you're in the middle of a coaching transition, or if you just don't have the notice in time to be able to do it. But yes, it's massive. And it's one of the biggest reasons why, you know, some of these other schools have maybe started to gain an advantage in development over Wisconsin. They get more practices. You have to do it. I 100% think that. I don't think it'll happen this year, but yes, if you have the opportunity and it makes sense logistically, you got to do it. All right, we're going to take a second here. We're going to come back a bunch more of your questions, including staff moves, Dylan Jones, running backs, receivers, hoops, Men's hockey, a bunch coming up. But first, a quick break for friends of the show over at FanDuel. It is an incredible time of the year with the NFL, and the NFL moves so quickly. We know that, but that's where FanDuel comes in and helps you get right into the middle of that action. One big play, and suddenly in football, everything feels different. That's what momentum does. That's what those big play swings do. And that's where FanDuel is so exciting. You're going to be not just watching the game, but you're reacting to it in real time as lines update and player props update in real time, putting you right in the middle of that action, right in the middle of every momentum swing. And it's not just betting at the beginning and then kind of sitting back and zoning out. Now you're engaged dynamically into the game. Whenever there's a turnover, FanDuel lets you jump into that moment, momentum swing, big drive, big stop, quarterback moment, whatever it is. Again, I love it. The player props update as the game happens, which I think is phenomenally cool. Right now, if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Also, right now going on, Locked On is launching a new everydayer club. You're already locked on. You're already in the Locked On group, listening every day. And thank you for making Locked On the number one sports network. Now, take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Badgers with no interruptions, members-free access to a Discord, and more, all for $5 a month or $50 a year. Go check the show notes for the link. That's lockedonbadgers.supercast.com. All right, let's go back into this. Let's get some more of your questions. Really excited to push through some of this here. Next one here, Badgers fan for life. How about men's hockey? 12-2-2, number 2 team in the country. You know what's wild? This is a great shout out for Badgers for life here. Everything at Wisconsin is right now going so well, right? You have men's hockey who just swept Notre Dame, number 2 in the country, back to the number 1 in the Big Ten. They're ahead of Michigan by a couple points. That program looks great. They just scored 12. I think it was 9 goals. Or was it 12? Again, 9-2 against Notre Dame. That's the most goals they've scored since 2006. And, volleyball is volleyball, women's hockey is women's hockey, men's hoops is rocking and rolling, women's basketball is turning it around. Let's go. If football could just come around, man, all these other components of this school are just cooking right now. We just need that flagship program. And then, man, Wisconsin is going to be in a good spot with its sports. Yeah, really good job, Badgers for life on that one. Cannon L says, Dylan Jones is better than any running back we have, and we won't retain him. I love Dylan. So 2 things I always say in the portal. You're never going to keep everybody you want to keep. That's true for every single program from Alabama down to Akron, right? You're never going to keep every single player you want to keep. I haven't heard any smoke on Dylan Jones. I would tell you if I did, or if I couldn't tell you, I just wouldn't say anything. Like, I'm not really in the business of like discreetly teasing things. If I know stuff, I can say it, I'll say it. I haven't heard anything there. I think Dylan Jones, I can tell you this. I know Dylan Jones really likes Luke Fickell. He likes his coaching staff. He likes the personal relationships. He's obviously coming off an injury, and it hasn't been the 2 years I think he expected or anybody else expected. So you would certainly understand a player in his position with a couple years left of college football looking around. Is he better than any other running back we have? I think so, probably. That's why he was the starter, quite frankly. He opened up number 1 in the depth chart for a reason. I think he is the best pure all-around running back we have. Getting Atuka showed a lot of flashes down the stretch, but I think he was also with the offensive line starting to gel. Do I think he's going to go? I hope not, but I do think you're going to have attrition in that running back room like you have in everywhere else. So we'll have to see. Rockin' 247 says, what is Wisconsin doing to keep the players they have now? Retention's always been a big deal at Wisconsin. And a lot of those new resources, I can tell you some of those are being put into player retention. And while recruiting at times hasn't maybe been where Wisconsin's wanted it to be, either in the portal or high school, although they've done pretty well in the high school portal the first couple of years of Fickell, they have won a lot of big retention battles. A guy like, and I know he didn't have the best year ever, but they had to fight to hold on to a Rico Holman, and they were able to fend off some pretty big programs for Rico. I can tell you, Bama was in on him. Auburn was in on him. Vinny Anthony's a guy that had a lot of interest. They were able to fight to hold on to Vinny Anthony. So they've done a pretty good job retaining the talent that they have, and I think they'll continue to do that. And some of the new resources are going into that. Marine Matt, rumors there will be a new offensive coordinator. What are we hearing? Well, let's talk staff. This is a good spot. We have a couple questions on the staff. I've been pretty consistent on this. I don't think Jeff Grimes is going anywhere. I think you are already seeing, and here's why, a couple reasons. this is already the time of the year where I think you would have heard something if there was a coordinator change, because portal contact is already happening. Whether, despite the fact that the portal hasn't officially, you can't do anything yet, the portal wars have begun. And we're already hearing quarterbacks that Wisconsin is kind of connected to. I don't think you would still have Jeff Grimes in place if you're already, I think they're already selling the quarterbacks on the offense that's going to be here, which is going to be Jeff Grimes. So I don't think Jeff Grimes is going anywhere. And I think, again, I've been frustrated at times with the offense this year, even despite the injuries. I think we could have done a few more things, but it's also incredibly fair to Jeff Grimes to say he was beyond hampered this year with offensive line injuries, quarterback injuries, and an incredibly tough schedule. I am interested to see, with just some normal health, what it could look like with him next year. And I think that's what we're going to see. In terms of staff changes, I do think you're going to see a few spots mix up. I do think you're going to see a few areas on the staff, and I want to be hesitant about saying what I've heard, because I would like to be a little more sure of it. I want to be pretty sure of things if I just put it out there on the show, but I do think you're going to see a few changes, offense, defense, a few places get moved around. I do think that's going to happen just based on some things I'm hearing, but I don't think it'll be Jeff Grimes. I think Jeff Grimes will be the guy next year, and I think partially because they're already kind of selling his offense and what he wants to do to quarterbacks that they want to have come here. So I don't think Jeff Grimes is going anywhere. Brian Shetty, do you feel as though Wisconsin will get enough players in the transfer portal to offset how small this recruiting class was? I 100% do, Brian. Another one I've been really consistent on. I think they will absolutely get the bodies that they want in the portal this offseason. Now, whether or not that'll work out is a completely different question. Will they get the right guys? Will they get guys that they can develop? Will they get guys that fit into their scheme? That's the question. But just in terms of pure numbers, I absolutely think they're going to get 30 guys in the portal, 25 to 35. I be ready. Be ready. And if they don't, I'll be surprised. I think it's going to be mid-20s and maybe more. Derek the First, do we expect too much as a fan base? Man, this is a real question. I appreciate it, Derek the First. No, I don't think so. I don't think we expect too much as a fan base. Now, can multiple things be true here? Can Wisconsin fans have been a little spoiled over the last 25 years? Absolutely, because you get used to certain things. You get used to sleeping on a nice couch, and if all of a sudden that's taken away and you have a hard futon, you're like, my back kind of hurts. This isn't quite what I wanted. But you can still expect a nice couch as a fan. I don't think Badger fans expect too much. I don't think expecting this team to be competitive with rivals, to beat Minnesota, to kind of uphold the legacy of what Wisconsin has been is asking too much. Quite frankly, I don't think Wisconsin fans, as much as we want to dream on it and wish on it, I don't think the expectation is to go win titles. I think it's to be a tough, hard-nosed team that plays hard, that doesn't get wiped off the field, that beats its rivals, and that can occasionally trip up in Ohio State and every 3 or 4 years, make a decent run. And I think those expectations are in line with where they should be. So I don't think Wisconsin fans do expect too much. I think they deserve to expect a high standard given what Wisconsin is, both nationally and within the state, what they're capable of doing, and the resources available to them. We should have high standards. So, yeah, I think it's a fair question. But no, I don't think the Wisconsin fans expect too much at all. Big Trey, Fickell's new draft pick philosophy. So, again, if you missed it, Luke Fickell talked a lot about high school recruits being almost like draft picks and investing more in the portal. Trey asks, do we use the funds to load up on solid players at difference-making positions like quarterback, offensive line, edge, and cornerback? Yeah, I think so. I think they're going to go very heavy at quarterback to the point where if they overpay, they overpay. And I'm completely okay with that. You got to be okay to overpay occasionally. And there's an old saying in baseball that if you're always trying to make a deal with the free agent, you're never going to sign anybody. At quarterback, they can't try to make a deal. It does. If you overpay by $1 million, but you get the right guy, that'll be the best $1 million you ever spend in college football. You can never pay too much for the right guy at quarterback, is my point. Now, that comes down to coach identification, evaluation. Those are things you still have to do right. But if you find your guy and he's interested in you and there's a number you have to hit at quarterback, you hit that number. So, yeah, I do think they'll take those funds and really put them towards those premium spots. Cornerback, another one. Tackle for sure. Receiver, a big boundary receiver is going to cost $800,000 to $1.2 million. But you need it. You need that guy. You absolutely need that guy. All right, we're going to take a second here. Talk about, we got more stuff coming up. We got hoops. We got Non-conference schedules. We got a bunch more of your questions coming up. Should the Badgers stop playing difficult non-conference teams altogether? That question's coming up as well. Locked on Badgers. First, a quick second for our friends of the show over at Rugiet. Rugiet is back on the show. Great sponsor. Let's talk about something that most men don't bring up, but they absolutely should. Stress from work, money, life. And it doesn't just switch off at night. And when it shows up at the worst possible time, Rugiet Ready is designed to help you get back that control. Rugiet Ready is a next generation prescription treatment created to support both the brain and the body, so you can feel present, confident, and ready when the moment matters. Listen, guys, just because the Badgers struggled in the red zone this year doesn't mean you should. Rugiet Ready combines 3 clinically proven ingredients in one mint that dissolves under your tongue so it absorbs fast. The science behind Rugiet Ready really stands out. It's clinically proven ingredients in one formula designed for both mental and physical readiness. And most men are ready in about 15 minutes on average. So you can stay present, confident, and in control when that moment is right. If you've been thinking about taking that next step, now's the time. Head to rugiet.com/lockedoncollege. That's rugiet.com/lockedoncollege. Get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rugiet Ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. All right, let's get into this. More questions, a bunch more we want to get into here on a really enjoyable, I love this. I love when we're able to get these questions on the show. Let's get this one here. ATX Badger. Should football only play cupcake non-conference games given that Texas is being penalized for losing to Ohio State? Yes. Yes, they should. I know people are going to hate this, and I know people don't want to hear it, but you don't get a merit badge for tough schedules. Nobody at the end of the year says, man, you were 9-3, but great job playing a tough schedule. We're going to bump you up the seeds. The conference, the committee, people care about wins and losses more than anything else. That's it. That's it. That's what they care about. So go get wins and losses. Until the committee really shows a concerted effort in examining strength of schedule and rewarding teams for scheduling hard and not penalizing teams for tough losses against really good opponents, until they figure that out, which they should be able to. I'm not saying I'm a fan of this. I'm saying the reality of this is you get rewarded for wins and losses, not tough schedules, period. So stop making it hard on yourself. Nobody else is, or I should say very few other teams are. And Wisconsin doesn't need to be the exception. We don't need to be the team making it hard on ourselves when we're already struggling to gain footing. And you play in the Big Ten. You're fine. Your strength of schedule is fine. Every year you're going to be playing an Ohio State, Michigan, or a Penn State, USC, or an Oregon, Washington. You don't have to worry about it. So out of conference, 100% easy games. And this does multiple things. Outside of just the wins and losses, what else does it do? It limits the injuries, because generally you're going to get ahead earlier. You can play more backups. You're not going to take as much wear and tear. You're not playing massive, big-bodied athletes at Bama and Ohio State and Notre Dame and Texas and those schools put out there. So it's probably going to keep your team fresher. You're probably going to have less injuries. It'll allow you to develop depth more because those young players can get real reps early in the season, and you're not going to take an out-of-conference loss. I know people aren't going to like that necessarily. They're going to say it's soft. They're going to say it's running from the challenge. I just say it's being smart. And that's what college football is now. Bama's doing this. Bama just descheduled USF so they could schedule Chattanooga. If Bama's doing it, we're fine doing it. Period. Yeah, I'm 100% on board with this. Stop playing tough out of conference games. Tori asks, who turns it around first and makes a playoff or an NCAA tournament appearance? Football or women's basketball? I think it's women's hoops. I'm so stoked for this women's team who just beat Michigan State, by the way. Kudos to Coach P. What a good hire it looks like. Michigan State was number 20 in the country, and they beat him pretty handily. Ronnie Porter almost had a triple-double. Look, there's a legitimate women's basketball team in Madison now, and I'm so here for it. Meanwhile, football won 4 games. I think there's a quicker path for women's hoops to get to the tournament than football to get to the playoff. I would love for both to happen. I would love for both to happen. A2 Badger says, will we ever get transparency on how much each roster is paid in NIL and direct payments? I'm all for player payment, but fans also deserve transparency. I love this point, and I wish we had it, A2 Badger, but we're never getting it. We're never going to get that transparency until the system dramatically changes, because the transparency would lead to competitive disadvantages. It's in teams' best interest not to disclose that, because why in the world would you want a conference rival to know how much you're paying your quarterback or your offensive tackle or how much you're paying an incoming left guard? Because then they could just offer 10,000 more. So until you have some type of salary cap, if you ever do, or until you have some type of something, right, some framework in place where there's guardrails and there's upper and lower bounds to what you pay players. Until you have that, you'll never see transparency because it's in no team's interest to release that. It would just hurt them, and it would lead to more poaching, and it would lead to more just nonsense in the portal, unfortunately. Let's go here. Brian Shetty, is there any benefit to follow recruiting until NSD considering kids flip so frequently now? I think it's person-to-person dependent, Brian. It's a super fair question. I I like the process, and I know it's different now, and I know it's not the same, but I like the recruiting process, getting to know players, getting into recruiting battles and following those. And players flip, but players have always flipped, not as much as they do now. But I think if you're a recruiting person and you really enjoy that process, you're still going to. And if you're turned off by some of the machinations behind it, yeah, wait till NSD. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer there. I think it's dependent on personnel. Matty A, big picture. Why do we need a national signing day? If a coaching staff identifies a kid early, offers, kid accepts, why should both parties have to wait for a specific date to sign? This is a good question, Maddie. I do think there are some guardrails here, right? Like you don't want coaches and recruiters trying to sign sophomores in high school, right? So there definitely should be some type of age bound where below a certain age, you can verbally commit, but you can't sign until you're a senior in high school. Like we definitely don't want freshmen or sophomores signing binding contracts. I don't think. But aside from that, I don't see a massive downside to when a kid becomes a senior and has that last year of eligibility. If they want to verbally and formally commit to a school, I think that process could work. I don't hate that. I think you'd have to build in some very real guardrails, which are already kind of there, to allow players an out if coaches leave, if programs, maybe have a bad season or something, maybe build some type of safeguard in there. But no, I don't hate that, Maddie, at all. Family Anti, we talked about the Harvard quarterback. I would still prefer Colton Joseph. I just think he's a better runner. I think he's a little bigger. I think he's a little more physical. I like the tools more. And he has 2 years of eligibility left. Although Jaden Craig is maybe a better thrower, the Harvard quarterback, I like the overall package of Colton Joseph more. I think he fits Grimes' offense better. I think he's a bigger athlete, and you get 2 years. Brian Shetty, do you think that had Wisconsin gotten Franklin, unlike Virginia Tech, they would have gotten the flips instead? Or do you think those kids just wanted to play on the East Coast? No, I think if Wisconsin had been in a position and attacked James Franklin and hired him, I think all those kids that Franklin brought from Penn State to Virginia Tech would have followed Franklin from Penn State to Wisconsin. Franklin's a really good recruiter. He's always been a good recruiter. He develops relationships with players really well. Players speak to that. And I think they were following that coach wherever he was going to go. So if Franklin were to, in a different hypothetical Marvel multiverse, if Franklin were to end up in Madison, I think he would bring a ton of players with him, just like he did at Virginia Tech, just like he would have anywhere he went, in my opinion. I think he's a really good coach. I still think Penn State's going to regret that one. Derek the First. I watched Amari. This is Amari Latimer. I watched his live, and all I saw on there was Wisconsin fans calling him a POS, saying that they hope he tears his ACL. Derek the First says that just stuck with me and made me sad. Yeah, listen, I'm never, ever, ever going to be in favor of rooting for somebody to get hurt over a recruiting decision. I'm never going to be in favor of that. And honestly, I don't think he's a POS either. Like, this is just me. I don't really hate kids making business decisions. And in the big picture, his group, his family, his advisors, himself, however you want to frame it, they put Wisconsin in kind of a bad spot. They created a bit of a bidding war, but they also got him probably another $250,000, $300,000. I mean, they did what they thought was best for them. And I think it's best at this point to just say, okay, that bridge is probably burned. All parties move on. Glad you did what's best for you. We're going to do what's best for us. It's going to be fine on both sides. You definitely earned a lot more money on signing day than you would have gotten elsewhere. And if that was your primary driver, then you did that. I'm not going to root for injury on anybody or anything like that. He made a business decision. He's going to have to live with it, good or bad. And so is Wisconsin. I think both sides just move forward. BS asks, do you feel there's going to be a lot of shakeup in the coaching staff? I do think there will be a couple moves, which I've talked about in this show a little bit. But I don't think the coordinators, and certainly Coach Fickle's not going anywhere. East King, your top 3 portal quarterbacks you love and why. So I think we kind of did this one. It's Colton Joseph. It's Lonergan from Boston College. And then it's probably Lincoln Kienholz from Ohio State. I think all of them have the ability to move in the pocket. I think all of them have all of them do have multiple years of eligibility. All of them can throw and run, and I think all of them would be a really nice fit for Jeff Grimes. Those are the three right now that I would be super good with any of those guys coming to Madison. This is a good question here. Prior to the portal, which can shake all this up, who are your top 5 players that are important for this roster for next year? Not best, but most important to be successful. Man, this is a great one. And in the comment section, let me know too. Who are your top 5 most important players for next year prior to anything coming in the portal? I think it's Kevin Haywood. That's the first one that comes to mind. You need an anchor on the edge. You need your left tackle back. I think he's going to be your left tackle next year. I think Kevin Haywood coming back healthy and being good, vitally important. That's one. I think Sebastian Cheeks on the outside. You got to replace Reiger. You got to replace Peterson. You got to replace a lot of pressure. He's the veteran on the edge coming back. I think he's going to be asked to step big into that role. Cheeks is 2 for me. Give me Mason Posa and Cooper Catalano. I think those 2 stars in the middle of that defense continuing to get better and staying healthy, vitally important. And I'm going to say Emilio Agard. You have a lot of losses in the secondary. You need one of your few returning veterans that I think has high level ability to come back and continue to grow and be a stabilizing force there. This is a great question. I think you can go in a couple other ways. Maybe a Nicholas Clayton if you think he's going to bust out. Maybe it's a guy like Perkins because you need somebody to replace a lot of the beef you lost inside. Preston Zachman, if he comes back, would be a good call. But I'm going to go with those 5 there. That's a really good question. I love that one. Family Men's High. Will we fix the Camp Randall student section issue before the Kohl Center move the student section? I don't think either gets fixed, man. I think we're going to continue to have the empty bowl in Camp Randall, and we're going to continue to have the student section not where it should be in the Kohl Center, unfortunately. Papa Rob, will the new training facility improve this team? Is there a spot to get custom boots and single leg scooters? Oh, man. Yes, I do think the new training facility will improve this team because we don't have an ability to punt inside right now. I think in general, having nicer facilities, having those type of things can have some intangible benefits as well if you have the right type of kids. You're showing an investment, which I think creates some motivation and some internal push towards growth. It's easier and a little easier just to wow and recruit young teenagers if you have nicer facilities. So I think it helps you land some more talent. It helps you develop talent that you have. I do think the new practice facility is going to help this team. Not dramatically. You got to get better in a lot of other ways, but I do think it will help. Love this one. ATX Badger. Who would you rather have back on this basketball team? Freitag or Gus? I think it's Freitag. Yeah. Freitag's been really good for Buffalo this year. And you look at this team coming off the bench, you have an Austin Rapp, you have Will Garlock, you have Janicki, you have Carrington, but what you don't really have is a slashing athletic guard, and that would be Freitag. Freitag could be that guy that could come in off the bench, could slash into the paint, could get you 8 to 12 points, could hit some tough shots, could make an athletic player or two. I think this team misses that. And listen, I'm not going to fault Freitag, right? He went to Buffalo and he's playing a bigger role there. That's what the portal is here for. Examine opportunities and find things that fit better for you. And I'm not going to fault this staff either, right? This staff did a lot in this portal season. They brought in a lot of talent. I think this is a spot where maybe it's win-win, but I would love to have Freitag or a guy like him coming off the bench this year. I think it would help this team a lot. Jack Nelson, assuming we take 0 portal tight ends, who is our tight end 1 and 2? Bork have the ability to compete for tight end 1 already. I think your top 2 tight ends next year it'll be Steck and Ashcraft, but Bork's going to play. Bork will absolutely, in my opinion, force his way into that. I just think Steck and Ashcraft have a lot more reps behind them. I don't think they need a portal tight end this year. I've talked about that a lot. I think you have a really nice combination of big inline guys with Bork and Steck and Ashcraft, and then you have a couple athletic guys with Sievers coming in, and you have McGowan. I think they're fine at tight end. Really, really do. Why would any decent the receiver choose to come to Wisconsin, knowing that the offense is putrid? Quarterback. Sorry. Why would any decent portal quarterback choose to come to Wisconsin, knowing that 1, the offense is putrid, 2, other schools will match any Badger offer, and 3, there's a voodoo hex on Luke Fickell quarterbacks getting hurt? I just continue to think, and listen, I could be proven wrong. Like, clip this at the end of the year, at the end of the offseason. If they don't get any quarterbacks, clip this and put it out there, and I'll own it. I just continue to think being able to offer a starting spot and a lot of money in the Big Ten is going to get you just fine. Like, I don't think that quarterbacks look at the offense last year and say, well, I can't play in that, because you sell quarterbacks by saying, well, our offense was like that because we didn't have you. Our offense was bad because we didn't have a quarterback. That's why we're paying you $3 million a year to come to Madison. We'll pay you top of the market. And again, this is assuming they're willing to do that, but that's what we've been told they will. We're going to pay you top of the market and you can come in and be a starting quarterback in Madison, Wisconsin. Are you kidding me? That's going to open so many doors. I continue to think, I understand this question, but I continue to think this narrative is overplayed. If you spend money and you offer playing time, sports has proven time and time again, those are two of the biggest motivators in the world for athletes. Money and playing time. We can give you both. And by the way, you get to live in Madison. You get to play in the Big Ten. I don't think it's going to be an issue. I really don't. I could be wrong. We will see. I think that might be it. Red Kingdom asks, have you heard anything else on Wisconsin going after Joseph? I continue to hear, and I've told you guys this, I know there's mutual interest there. And I won't go deeper than that, but I really think that he's at the very least at the top of the board or among a few players at the top of their board. And I think there's mutual interest there. So he could be the guy. Colton Joseph could be your quarterback. Brad D asks, what has Brad D brought to the team as a coach? That can't be actually Brad Davison asking that, but that's phenomenal. I didn't even catch that when I copied and pasted that in there. I don't fully know yet. I think it's really hard to tell. I do know from a recruiting standpoint, people on this program, are very excited about what Davison can bring as a recruiter. He's younger. He has a ton of excitement. He has a great personality. He loves this place. He'll be able to sell it. I think from a recruiting standpoint, Brad is going to do really good things for the Badgers. From a coach standpoint, I think it's kind of hard to tell yet. And it might take a little bit of time for him to figure out that role. He's still young in his coaching journey, obviously, but it also maybe for what Greg Gard wants him to do and where he wants him, to be most effective. So long answer, maybe a long answer, not saying much, but I think from a recruiting standpoint, you're going to see some real returns from Brad. I think it's going to be a really good hire from that standpoint. Appreciate you guys so much. I didn't even get to all the questions, but we're 36 minutes in. This was awesome. Really, really do appreciate everybody on Wisconsin, and we will definitely talk tomorrow.